When we're using Visual Web Developer, remember we talked about working off the desktop. We do not want to work off the mapped drive. That causes some really flaky errors if we're working out of that mapped drive. So to start our session, we'll come into the mapped drive. We'll find the folder that we want to work on and copy it down to the desktop. This way we have the most current version. If we keep the most current version on Instruct, then we can pull it down to our desktop wherever we're working in class or in the labs or whatever the case may be. So we have this current version down here on the desktop now. The next step will be to open Visual Web Developer. We'll go to File, Open Website. We don't want a new one. We want to open website. We don't want open project. We want website. Pick the one on your desktop to open. And there we go. Now we're working with the latest version, with the current version. Let's look and see View in Browser. This looks exactly like where we left off last time. We got a little bit of text here. This is an ASP label that's coming from the code behind, pulling the date and time, the date from the code behind, and then we've got the baseball image there. That baseball image is huge, so let me try to shrink that down a little bit. I'm in the source code for default.aspx. I've added that height variable. I saved it. Let's review it. Press F5 to refresh. And that looks much better. The other thing I want to work with now is something called a response redirect. It's just sending the page somewhere else. So when this page loads, there's an event handler for the page load event that just takes you somewhere else. So the first thing we need to do, let's get into the directory up here in Solution Explorer, add a new item. Let's add a new web form, and let's call it, just give it your name, Mike. Add. I'm going to go back to default.aspx, and I'm going to add a hyperlink to Mike. So down under the picture here, let me just insert a couple of breaks. And we'll put a hyperlink to mike.aspx. Save that. Now we can open up the mike.aspx page, get into design view, and we'll just put redirect to Google. Here we're in the design view for Mike ASPX. Now we want to get into the code behind. This is where we're actually going to enter our commands. So we get into the code behind. Let's create a new page routine, our new event handler for page events. Load. Okay, we have a new subroutine here now for page events load. We're going to do a response dot redirect to Google, and we'll save that up. So now the theory is when we click on the Mike link off of that default page, it'll open up the mike.aspx page. When Mike ASPX loads, it will hand it up to the ASP engine. The ASP engine will come in here. It'll see this subroutine that says on a page load. So when Mike.aspx loads, redirect it to Google. So let's test it and see if it works. Go to Default and View in Browser. We see our link. We click on the link to Mike, and it immediately redirects us to Google. So the response redirect is working. So you can do this to point people to pages outside of your site, within your site. You can also use response redirect after some events occur, so like after database additions and deletions and those kinds of things. So response redirect is a pretty useful command that you'll work with. So we've tested the response redirect, and we've talked about loading up the website. Well, we're going to talk about Postback for a minute. So when a page is very first comes from the server, it's brand new. We've never seen it before. The page can have places for user interaction, so the user could type things into text box. They can click buttons. They can choose drop-down menus, all those kinds of things to do something or to customize their experience there. When they make a change on a page and take an action, such as a drop-down box or clicking the button, the browser resends the page to the web server. The web server will now reparse the page and go back through all of the ASP commands and everything on the page. This time it is including the user information that the user submitted. When it comes back down after it's reparsed the page is considered to be in Postback. So we're going to play around with Postback just a little bit to get a feel for it. But keep in mind, Postback is generally initiated from a user action like a button click, something like that. And it's just the same page. It's just been reparsed, only this time it's including the user data, the stuff that the user's included with it. So we're going to play with Postback just a little bit here. Let's be on the default page, default.aspx. The easiest way probably to get started is here in source view, and I've just put a couple breaks below the link to get down here. We want to put in our percents here to signify that this is going to be ASP now, so the ASP engine needs to take this into account and needs to take action here. The way that we're going to implement the Postback is through if-then-else statements. So if not is Postback, then else, and then we need to end the if statement. Okay. So what we're saying here in this first one, if we're not in Postback, then we want to display this, and we're going to display just a simple text box. Let's just set some placeholders now. What is your name? So when the first page very first loads, it's going to say, what is your name? There'll be a blank text box there and a button. The user can then enter their name. If this is not the first time the page has been shown, so it is in Postback now, we're going to display the message, welcome. Then we'll include that text box information. We'll come back and fill that in. So if it is not in Postback, it's the first time it's been seen, what is your name with a text box and a submit button. If it is in Postback, so the user's filled out their name and clicked on submit, it'll come back and say welcome, and then whatever's in that text box, we're glad you visited our page. So we've got a little bit of cleaning up here to do, but this is just getting some placeholders in place here. So let's jump over to design view. Go to right after what is your name, let's put in an ASP text box. Right behind that ASP text box, let's put in a submit button. The text box, we need to give it a unique name, so let's call it TB name. And the button, let's call it btn_submit. And for the text that actually shows up in the button, let's change that to Submit. Okay, so we've got our text box and our button in place. Let's go back to source view. And now we can get in here, highlight all this stuff. It'll be TB_name. So that's the object that we want to display. We want to display the text property of that. So up here we're collecting the name. They click submit. It goes into Postback. When it goes into Postback, we're going to say welcome. We're going to get in that text box object, grab the text property, display that right here. We're glad you visited our page. Let's just do a little more cleanup. It looks like our text boxes have also been placed in the else. There we go. So if it's not in Postback, it's the what is your name with the box and the button. Else, so that means it is in Postback. We're going to display welcome and their name. We're glad you visited our page, and then we're going to end our ifs. So let's test this in the browser. So let's view in browser. Yes, we need an equal sign in there. Save that, and we will refresh. There we go. What is your name? Mike. The page is in Postback, so it comes back with the name.